Did you hear what Jason Whitlock said about Odell Beckham?
I did not.
You want to hear?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's check it out. See what Jason Whitlock said. He says, "I think for for teams that are interested in winning and winning right now, Odell Beckham Jr. has very little value. He's not all in football. He costs too much money. He's not a great player as everybody's made him out to be. He's benefited from a league that has gone soft. He's undersized. He's got a big mouth. He makes some spectacular catches, but he doesn't contribute to a winning environment. He is the prime example of a guy that you don't want anywhere near your football team if you're trying to win a championship." D-man, those are harsh words from Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, that's pretty, harsh, no question, as you just said. But listen, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I haven't exactly been a Beckham fan based on what I saw up close in Cleveland in 2019. He was a disappointment. Yes, he played hurt, but I thought there were too many distractions that came with him. And then when he was on the field, he wasn't productive enough. So I could see, elements of truth in what Whitlock was saying, but I wouldn't have been that harsh.
No, I must be the most naive guy around. I always assumed if you got the deal that you wanted and tried hard to get, a long-term deal with more millions than you can spend, you just assume the other stuff goes with it. You just assume he's going to be a team player. He's going to be a good locker room guy. He's going to be a good mentor to guys at the same position. I must be so off base on this because we hear this a lot about players like Beckham. But I don't think I've heard a criticism as harsh as this one by Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not making excuses for the Baker Mayfield, but I do think that his head was spinning last year for a variety of reasons, one of which was he felt like he had to force feed Beckham, and he also was presented with Landry and Beckham as a tandem, and they needed their touches. So I think that Beckham is a guy who is not going to go quietly if you just tell him, suck it up, be a team player, catch the ball when it comes to you. He's going to want to be the show. And I don't know that that's going to work necessarily seamlessly anyway with the 2020 Browns. And here's the other thing, Les. We don't know how he is going to recover from the core injury. We all assume everything will be fine post-surgery, but is the core injury going to keep him out of optional team activities? So who knows?
Well, by the way, Jason Whitlock's comments were made on Fox Sports 1. Here's the other thing, going back to my naivete, and that is that when 2 years ago, when Landry was talking to everybody in the front office and the coaching staff to go get Odell Beckham, we assumed that would be a good thing. Well, he got here, and it wasn't. It might have been good for their friendship, but it wasn't good for the football team. And so, again, you'd assume if Landry is begging to get his buddy there, that they would have played well together.
Correct, and it really was disconcerting to me. I've mentioned this on the show several times, Les, that toward the end of the season, we were hearing how, Beckham and Landry were attached at the hip. And you really can't have wide receivers dictating policy in your locker room. I'm sorry. I don't care who they are. Short of Jerry Rice, you can't. And Jerry Rice didn't do that, by the way. But unless you're Jerry Rice, you can't be telling people, oh, I need this amount of catches or this amount of touches, or I'm this or I'm that, let alone not only do you want me on your team, but you want my best buddy on the team. That makes me nervous because now you feel like if you get rid of one of them, you have to, mollify the other one. And that shouldn't be how it is.
No, I'm not so sure that both would be as totally upset as we think they are if they'd split them up. I would have thought that 2 years ago, but I don't really believe that now. But again, you'd think if Odell Beckham looks around and sees the changes made to the coaching staff, you'd think that fits right in his wheelhouse. But again, if he's the guy that Jason Whitlock says he is, then that's not going to matter one way or the other.
Right, Les. Interestingly enough, what might very well keep Beckham here for 2020 is the status, or the uncertain status, I should say, of Jarvis Landry, because we assume that the hip injury that Landry had and the hip surgery that Landry had is a much more difficult recovery than the core that Odell had. So if you get rid of Odell and you have question marks about Landry's ability to come back from the hip, then what? Then what do you have in the wide receiver room?
And right now you don't. You don't even have a third wide receiver.